Welcome back to Streamline Entertainment. It is Marvin speaking. We're going to get straight into a video clip, and I'm not going to play the full video, people. And it's Piers Morgan talking to Elizabeth Oversen about being a friend of p-diddy, and Piers Morgan really asking some deep questions about their relationship, and obviously him going through court and on so many charges. Quite a few of them got dropped, but like I said, he is looking to be charged on a few things that basically, which could be anything between 2 to 6 years. Let's get straight into this.
Thank you for having me.
A lot of people are kind of aware of your history with Diddy, but for those who know nothing about it, how would you categorize your time with him?
My time with Sean was honestly pleasant in the beginning. To my recollection, the first time we met, we spent the night together, but he was a consummate gentleman with me in that evening, again, to my recollection. And every other time I saw him after that was in a group setting, so it was fine. The last time I saw him, however, things had taken a bit of a turn. It was after Confessions of a Video Vixen, my first book had been published, and he was seething when he saw me at Prince had a party at his house, and we were there, you know, of course, before Prince died, and he was scowling at me the whole night, and I found it amusing, but he was obviously very angry with me by that point in our relationship.
Why was he so angry with you?
Well, 4 months before Confessions was published in 2005, we got a call from Sean's attorney, my attorney did, and Sean's attorney wanted to see the book before the book came out. Confessions of a Video Vixen was an embargoed book, so no one could see it. No one would even get it until the publication date, which is June 5th of that year. And so my attorney told his attorney that he could not get the book and that they would have to wait until the book came out like everyone else. And if they saw a problem in the book, that they were free to reach back out to us, sue us, whatever they felt was necessary. We knew that wouldn't happen because HarperCollins is the publisher of that book, as you know, is a News Corp entity, and those attorneys made sure it was vetted to the fullest, so Sean could never sue, he could never raise any objection to it. And I think he always hated me after that because I left enough. I posed questions in that book that that I think sent certain people down the direction that leads us to where we are now.
Just explain that a little more. What were the questions you think that you're talking about?
Look, I have to admit, I do think that she's trying to sort of promote herself in this. I've watched a lot of people who've commented on Elizabeth. Yeah, we know that p-diddy at the end of the day isn't an angel and is a bit of a control freak. And if he doesn't get what he wants, he generally, you know, uses aggression, sometimes violence, or basically to see whether basically he can actually gets something on someone just to get his own way or to keep them quiet. I do agree with that at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? But like I said, a lot of people do come out the woodwork who've dealt with Diddy, and a lot of it, when it real boils down to it, it's just about money or them getting something out of him.
Well, honestly, I'm just now getting context on a lot of the questions that I had then. After the trial gave me way more context, but just about, I think, his sexual proclivities, and what we saw in hanging out with him, the kind of clubs he took us to, even conversations he and I had one in particular where I didn't understand it at the time. And honestly, Piers, I'm getting new understanding about this line of questioning. I wrote about this in Confessions, where my boyfriend and I at the time had gone to his home for New Year's Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve kind of festivities. And he pulled me to the side and was just like, we're friends, right? We're friends. And I was like, yeah, we're friends. And like, we're good. And I'm like, yeah, we're good. And I couldn't figure out what he meant. And I wrote about this where I didn't know what he was talking about. And he just kind of went on to say, I have kids, I have a mom, and if anything got out, it would really hurt them. And I honestly, at that point in stage, did not know or remember what he was talking about. And so we just kind of laughed it off, like, what's going on with him, and things like he said to my boyfriend, like, don't trust her. She might have her on video with, in precarious positions. And this is back before cell phone cameras. So I was just like, what video? I didn't understand any of it. Now after the trial and the things that have come out from the trial, this gives these conversations a lot more context. But at the time when Confessions came out, it did make us all wonder, what was he so afraid of? I didn't even know what I had seen or didn't see, or if there's something happened that I didn't remember from our time together. But he was very afraid that I would say something in the book. And honestly, I think he never contacted.
Seems like to me that we know Diddy was very, very paranoid in people knowing what he gets up to. But like I said, loads of people, I'm sure many famous stars sort of had a smile on their face about his parties. But even before it went to court, I think I was just thinking a lot of people were up for what was going on, including Cassie. And that was one of the reasons why he wasn't looking at, like, say, 15 to 20 years plus. Because, like I said, a lot of these people engaged in what, and were up for it, in what he organised. And obviously people like Cassie organised stuff as well. So I don't think he was fully to blame in this at the end of the day, because, like I said, some people are addicted to stuff. But like I said, I do think that his sort of mental sort of state of mind and the way he controlled people, he did get them to do things that they thought that were okay to do. I think he's got that much control over people that they're not going to really sort of scream too much that foul play, should I say.
Us back because what he thought I was going to say, I did not say, possibly because I didn't remember it.
What do you think he was fearful of you saying?
I have to be honest, Piers, in booking this time with you today, and your producer asked me to kind of send over some pages from the book. I hadn't read Confessions since I wrote it, and I read it for the audio version, and that was 2005. It's been 20 years since I read this book. And in reading what I sent over, which is what I just described to you right now, that I knew something. And I was confused because the only time that we had together prior to this conversation was alone time at his home, wherein I felt we had a good time. I didn't know, we had never, he didn't come on to me. He just seemed it was very platonic, I thought. So I was confused as to what was it? And so I have to admit, my mind kind of races now that I have more context of his proclivities and what he's capable of what he was so afraid of, what he thought I knew, or what he thought I remembered.
I mean, in the book, you talk about the first time you met Diddy in a nightclub at 3 a.m. You said, right there in front of me, Diddy and Gotti, who was the Murder Inc. Records boss, Irv Gotti, made arrangements to send me to Diddy's house in 1 hour. It was 4 a.m. I turned up to Diddy's home in my SUV. There were security guards in the driveway, all dressed in dark suits with their hands in front of them. They had been expecting me. The things that went on when Gotti and I were together are almost unimaginable to me now. But in the haze of drugs and liquor, it all seemed all right. I was being used over and over again, man after man, all friends and acquaintances of Gotti's. I quickly became Gotti's showpiece. He would turn other people in the industry onto me. I was his party favour. Whenever there was anyone Gotti wanted to impress, he would send them to me and I'd take care of them. I mean, could it be that what Sean Combs was worried about was that he facilitated this very transactional relationship that you had with Irv Gotti? Is that part of this?
I don't think that was it. And honestly, I think it was more insidious than that. The fear, the fright that he had that during that conversation at his Miami home, you know, back in whatever year that was, he seemed terrified that I had known something. And I just don't know what he thought I knew or remembered. The transactional nature of how we met, and which is why, you know, I said in various interviews before that I was gifted to him, it was because no one asked me if I wanted to go. No one asked me. They talked about me as if I wasn't there. I was property to cart around. And that's what they did. If they would have asked me, I still would have gone. So
look, it's exactly the same thing that happened to Cassie. I think she knew what she was going into, but like I said, I think they were money transactions, and this is why I think people feel like I said, so many people have come out to talk about Diddy to see whether they can get money out of him. But like I said, a lot of this was about money from the start and getting paid for stuff at the end of the day. And like I said, I think people come out a bit later expecting the world to go, oh, I really, really feel sorry for you at the end of the day. But she didn't have to go if she didn't want to go, to be honest with you. This just sounds like another sort of Cassie story. Yes, P-Diddy did abuse Cassie, and I really, really felt sorry for her at the end of the day. But she went back to him numerous of times.
So I didn't hold any objection at the time because I would have still done it. Being 21 and it's Diddy and we're having fun and it's just a Saturday night out in LA. I'm sorry, what was that?
Did you actually have any kind of sexual relationship with Diddy at all?
No, Diddy and I did not. No, well, not to my knowledge.
So what do you mean by that?
Not to my knowledge. I don't. Honestly, I'm questioning a lot of things right now.
What you think?
So not to my knowledge. No, I don't think anything right now. I just, not to my knowledge, because honestly.
That's a very strange response, though, to not remember whether you did or not.
Yeah, isn't it? It is. Yeah, it is. Because honestly, Piers, before I went through my text, again, I hadn't read Confessions in 20 years. I wrote it. It was painful to write.
So if you write a book and you don't know the key points in this book, it just seems like to me, she just wants to be relevant again and for people to have a look at that book because she's mentioned it a few times. And like I said, and she's not 100% sure what's in that book, which is quite strange.
So I never wanted to re-traumatize myself and go through those years again. And think about this. I'm a middle-aged woman at this point. I don't want to go back into my 20s and see what happened. But in gathering information for this interview here, reading that passage again for the first time in 20 years, I questioned a lot of things like, well, why was he so afraid? And why did he try to, make my boyfriend feel as if I wasn't trustworthy? And
do you think he took advantage of you when you were under the influence of
Brits born before 1980 with no life insurance may be eligible for this? So if you meet the
alcohol and drugs?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And
but do you fear that's the case now from everything you've read?
Honestly, yes. Given the context, now that I know, because again, I never knew any of these things about him before. So the things that I learned in the trial, I did not know. I never saw that side of him. I did not know. I never understood. And again, in 2005, when I published Confessions, it says I didn't understand why he was so fearful of me, because our time together was pleasant. And I was like, wait, what is he so afraid of? What does he not want me to tell? I didn't see anything at that point. At that point, I hadn't seen anything. At that point, we had, I thought, just a friendly, platonic night together. So I was confused then. And 20 years later, I'm confused now. So to my knowledge, I've never had sex with Sean Combs. We never had that kind of relationship.
But you can't be sure.
Given what we know now, I can't be sure.
And how does that make you feel?
And that saddens me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
It saddens me, honestly.
So basically, she's confirming technically that she was going to these parties, taking rugs, and technically could have been blanking out at the end of the day. But like I said, why hadn't she reported this years ago if she wanted to go legal on it? It doesn't matter. It just sounds like to me at the end of the day, if you honestly believe that something may have happened to you, you then go to the police, then talk to a lawyer, and basically to see if basically, and it just doesn't make sense. This is why I think a lot of the stuff, why Diddy got away with so much, is because it was transactional.
Yeah, because honestly, during this entire process, I've been shying away from publicity and just letting the trial unfold. I knew things from just being around and people talking, but I didn't know what was going to come out. There's a few things that I saw that without context were strange to me, but I didn't understand them until the trial. And so I've been quiet this whole time, and I disappeared off of social. I just disappeared for the past year waiting for this thing to unfold. In the unfolding of what I believe to be facts, and definitely the testimonies of Cassie and Jane and even some of the men, and then looking back at the text, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, when he said, if anything got out, and I'm like, and I remember at the time being so confused, like anything, like what got out? Like nothing happened. We hung out. You were kind. At some point I went to sleep. I don't know when, but I woke up and then we had breakfast and you were kind and I left. Nothing happened. I don't know, Piers. I feel, just in the last 24 hours, I question what I thought I knew about my time with him.
You detailed in your books romantic relationships with a lot of famous people from that world: Jay-Z, DMX, Van Diesel, Lil Wayne, Method Man, even Bill Maher, LL Cool J, Mr. Carl, and others. You had a lot of famous guys you dated. And who knows what the nature of what happened with Diddy was about. But do you feel that this whole world has now changed irrevocably as a result of what happened to Diddy?
No, because nothing has happened to Diddy. Nothing has happened to Sean at all. What has happened here is that, here's the deal. It's not a Diddy issue. Like, Diddy is a problem, but he's not the problem, okay? He's not the problem. From Cosby to Combs, Weinstein to Epstein, and everything in between, they're all different tentacles of the same beast. And this is a story as old as time. The abuses of men, men in power especially, men with money. And I think it only increases over time as women become more free and more liberated, being able to make our own money, being able to, buy our own homes, being able to start our own businesses. I think it only enrages the men who hold power that they're losing power. And so I felt that over time, in my experience over the last 20 something years that I've been in this town, that the men are increasingly more aggressive and more so wanting to keep women under control and in power because they are losing power, even legally. So I don't think that the Diddy trial has changed anything other than it probably fuels this issue more than anything, because here's the deal. Two of the toughest charges have been dropped. He's facing up to 20 with time served. Yeah, he's denied bail, but how much time is he really going to get?
That's my point. I'm going to leave it there, people. I do think that Elizabeth, she didn't really want to sort of commit to a lot. I didn't really get a point, but what I did get is that technically she wants to be relevant again. She did make some good points about some people in power, like your Diddy's. I think they're very good at promising a lot, but like I said, and inviting these young women at the time to parties who are a little bit naive, and then basically get some trauma after it, which is a terrible thing, which is a very, very, very terrible thing. But like I said, when money is exchanged, it's a different matter, because like I said, he's got something on him, because he's got a lot of money, he's very powerful like that, and people know him, which is pretty sad, to be honest with you. I do think that Diddy is controlling. I do think he has a lot of pull and powerful people behind him, much like what Epstein did back in the day. But I do think money talks with Diddy, and he managed to pay a lot of people off that went to these parties that probably was game at first and realized, oh, this is a bit embarrassing, what happened to me, and I let my inhibitions go. But I think it's a two-way thing, and that was one of the reasons why he got off with so much that he did. Let me know what you think, people. I do think Elizabeth is trying to become relevant. She has made some good points at the end of the day, but like I said, maybe it's all about for her to for people to look at her book, because like I said, she didn't know half the stuff that was in it, which didn't make sense to me. Do subscribe to Piers Morgan. I think he's made some good points. Let me know what you think. But like I said, I do think a lot of these people who are coming out, it is about money, because a lot of them went back to Diddy. And if you look at the full story, she probably, enjoyed, some of the parties and hanging out with him because of the money and the people he knew as well. Don't forget to subscribe to Streamline Investigations and Streamline Entertainment. Thank you very much indeed. Take care.